Welcome to the Budget and Special Projects Committee meeting. It's about 1 o'clock on Wednesday, April 2nd. I call this meeting to order. Item 2 is presentation and discussion with city departments regarding the status of capital program implementation. And
We're coming up first.
Yep. And I gave you all some time guidelines, but because we started a little bit late, let's go 1:25 for this total presentation and then 20 minutes worth of questions afterwards. We finish at 1:45.
So you guys, Anna America, person of many titles, but including Deputy City Administrator over Parks and Public Facilities. And we're going to be divided, this is in 2 parts today. You'll have Public Works coming up with the engineering things. You had some backup, but this is updated and adds some additional information. So there's 2 pieces there. You have one that has the logo up at the top, that's the,
No, take one, pass it
Let's
around.
make sure.
Two. We have.
yeah, sorry, there are so many things that there are 2. I know you guys know this, but I'm gonna just kind of remind you a little bit on the reorganization as you're passing around paper. And we're working on consolidating this and getting some additional information in this, assuming that we're doing regular updates for you. But we have merged what was called the City Design Studio and the Parks folks who are also working on design.
Pass that down there, please.
Everybody got one? Who needs it?
Just have on our. Okay. It's very
Okay,
confusing.
all right, is everybody good?
Everyone has 2 packets. Everyone should have 2
So
packets.
yes, 2 people. Not these 2, right. So, which is a different thing. Anyway, so
Yes, Ms. Davis,
the,
hold on.
Okay, so there are 2 packets for everybody?
Yes.
And these are not the same that are in
they're
backup?
just additional information. That was what was submitted to Sales Tax Overview Committee, and we've had some updates.
Okay.
So we're providing you additional
So
information.
these are not in the online backup?
Correct. This is additional, most of this information is in that, Sarah, but there's some additional updates. So that was, what you got in your packet was what is submitted to Sales Tax Overview Committee. But as you may know, Parks and Special Projects has so many different funding sources, and we wanted to make sure you had, so we've added some additional things that are included here. So back to what I was originally, the City Design Studio and Parks, the Parks Design Group have all been merged into one team that works together. CABS, it's City Architectural Building Services, and between that group, which was Mary Womble's group, and Steve Lassman, who was here, who was over capital projects for Parks, manages all the vertical projects for the city, so all parks projects, all the buildings, all the other, basically all the cool and fun stuff, not this boring stuff like the guys who come out after us did. So we have been asked to try to go through this briefly. You've got this package right here. Look at this one that has this on top. Mary Womble, who is the manager of CABS, is going to highlight some of the, and what we're going to do here is go through this. You guys have this information. She's going to highlight a few key things that we think there might be interested in. You feel free to ask questions about those or about anything additional you see, or if, in the interest of time, if you've got follow-up things. And if you have things, we're going to work on making a more consolidated package for you that will include council districts and some other information like that. But if you see some things that you would like us to include in the regular update information as we go on, please let us know as they're working on coming up with a more detailed report. Mary, you want to kind of work them through quickly through that first list?
All right, thank you. Yes, I'm just going to highlight a few of the projects. So the packet I'm going through is the one with the City of Tulsa logo on it. First project is 815 South Riverside Drive. That's 3 different projects. It's project number 1. That one is actually on hold right now. We are working with the artist, so that is a little bit of movement there. Interactive technology is on hold. The commercial development is also on hold, but we're working with Sharp Development on that.
Is that Crybaby Hill?
Yeah, that's
Correct.
Crybaby Hill,
Yes.
and those are all ongoing conversations and
Right.
sort of updating on all 3 of those elements.
Saw an update on that.
Yeah, and then skipping down to PAC is in here about 4 times. There's a handful of little projects on it. Project 7 is some office renovations we're finishing up. We have some renovations also from 2019, and then ARPA projects, that's project number 20. And then lastly, 28 is the big IoT3 renovation project.
Which one? What's that again?
That one is number 28. Yeah.
Oh, 28.
So,
Yeah.
and so that one is, that's the $79.7 million project. We have selected the design firm on that, that's Beck Design. We have an initial $5 million right now, and we will be sending out a selection for a construction manager at risk probably in the next 30 to 60 days. So that one is a big one on the horizon. Going back to the front page, project number 10, animal shelter expansion. That one is, we opened bids on, in February. We are getting ready to award that bid and get that construction started. That should be starting in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That one is a long time coming as well, so that's another one of interest. Going down to project 14, Greenwood Cultural Center. We are working through design on that right now, meeting every 2 weeks. Had a meeting yesterday. Schematic design is under review right now. We'll move forward with that. The scope of that project was new roof, new sanitary sewer, some items we needed to shore that facility up, and so that is being spent. That's IoT 2 money. Let's see, Public Safety Center is project number 15, right after that. We have now selected a construction manager. We have a design firm, Narrate and DLR Group. It's a joint venture. DLR Group is in town this week, meeting with police, fire, TEMA, all those groups. We are just received our preliminary assessment, and we're getting ready to move into conceptual design on that one. So that one is very active. Let's see, skipping down a little bit to project 21, BOK Center and Arvis Convention Center. That is, we are working in design right now. We started that one in September. That's GH2 and Tulsa Vision Builders. We have a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks to review the costs. A little bit over budget on that at the beginning, so we're working to mitigate that as we move forward with that project. Let's see. Next project, Gilcrease Museum, project number 23. We are roughly 93% billed. The building is slated to be done later this year, set in September 2025. The exhibits are ongoing in the background, kind of a separate concurrent activity. So the exhibits will be done at the end of next year, and we're looking at an early 2027 opening for the museum. And let's see, in the interest of time, that is what I have. Questions?
Yeah, I'm going to hold questions until we get through the presentations. I'm just making a list.
Great.
All right,
Great.
I will
If you have
jump
a question,
into,
write it down so you don't forget it. Okay.
I'll jump into our parks projects on the other packet there. Number 1, the McClure Slide and Plunge Pool. The initial slide and plunge pool came over bid 3 separate times, so we are adjusting that project to be a shade sail and turf area connected to the pool. Equipment is in delivery now. Contractors are getting ready to mobilize on site, and that should be completed by early May before the pool season. Skipping to number 3, Woodward Park improvements. The groundbreaking for the Woodward Park improvements were delayed while contractors wait for a large concrete pipe to be delivered. We're now expecting that to break ground mid to late April, about a year of construction on that. Number 4, our Chamberlain Pool reconstruction. Construction there is underway and currently expecting to complete in early June of 2025. We are working through construction there and expecting to have that open beginning or at least shortly after the start of pool season. Number 5, the Tulsa Zoo Carnivores. The pre-bid meeting for that was held in February with bids open end of February, and we are moving forward with Narrate and I forget the construction company. Is it?
No.
Napoltz Construction. Thank you. And so they will be beginning construction on the carnivore exhibit soon. The zoo elephant encounter is wrapping up, and the ribbon cutting will be April 7th, this Monday. So that project will be wrapping up shortly. Number 7, our Fred Johnson Park improvements. We're currently in design with a land plan on that, progressing towards our 90% design, expecting to get that out to bid this summer with construction beginning late fall or early winter of this year, and then completing by fall of 2026 for Fred Johnson. And kind of schematic plan of that project is in the back of your packet. Number 8, the Swan Lake Fountain rehabilitation is wrapping up, and we're finishing all of our closeout items for that project. I think the last remaining item will be to replace the chain link fencing with wrought iron fencing, and then we will be completed with all of the Swan Lake work. Skipping to number 10, our tennis court rehabilitation. We finished the first third of our court rehabilitation citywide last year. We've got another round coming this year, which should be another 20 or so courts. Again, the list of that is in the back of the packet, listing the specific refinishings and conversions that will be taking place at the courts. The expectation is that by 26, we will have converted or resurfaced every court in the park system.
Say that last part again?
The tennis court conversions, by the end of 2026, we will have converted or refinished every court in the system.
Okay.
Number,
Let's do playgrounds and
Oh, yes.
dreamkeepers, and then let them go to questions.
yes. I do briefly want to touch on Hill Park improvements. We're selecting a consultant for that, and that'll be renovating the Hill Park area, not the rec center, just the exterior park. Our outdoor play amenities, we have about 20 full playground replacements and another 20 or so improvements to existing playgrounds currently underway. We've got a number of those started now with more in design. That list is also at the back of your packet. The Chamberlain and Berry Park improvements, we are working with George Kaiser Foundation and Studio Zodi Architects, currently at about 75% for design there, so expecting sometime probably late summer to get that out to bid. And then finally, number 31 on the back, Dreamkeepers Park improvements. We just received our proposals for Dreamkeepers from our architects and selected kind of top 5 to select for a second round of interviews for a design consultant there. We'll probably expect about a year for design before that breaks ground sometime in 2026.
Okay. Do you want us to answer questions now, or do them first and then answer questions?
Yeah, I think it's easier to keep you at the table
Okay.
and just do a
You
Q&A
tell us when you
session
wanna
here
cut it
for
short,
10
so,
minutes.
yeah.
Yep, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we have Counselor Gilbert and then Dr. Wright.
So I want to go back to the item number 1 on this page.
This one?
Yeah.
Crybaby
about
Hill?
Crybaby Hill. So there was an article that came out maybe a couple weeks ago about the hotel, the motel that's going to be on there. Is that still the plan?
I think there are conversations with the developer happening now. The mayor has met with the developer and is trying to get up to speed on what they're, as you may be aware, Counselor, I think that the last administration left and they were in early stages of negotiation and discussing what that might look like. And So those conversations are ongoing with the developer and everybody.
About
who's
the
involved.
motel,
Yes.
moving
yes.
forward with the hotel.
Yes, and Mike, if you want to add anything, but I mean, I think, yes, meetings with the developer, discussing with it. There were lots of things were held in conversations that were not necessarily written down and left for the next people who came on board, who are trying to get up to speed on what agreements were discussed and what people's expectations are and things like that, so.
Okay, but it is part of the Improve Our Tulsa package. I mean, that's what was included in the package, to have it go towards a hotel. So, right, or a motel.
I don't know, I don't believe that the language specified a hotel, no, the language just specified improvements. There's two funding sources for that. One is 2006 sales tax, which just specified improvements in that geographic area without specifying what they would be. And then there are additional funds that are Route 66 funds that are for the length of Route 66 in the entire city, that again, did not specify specific things that had to be done, just that they had to be Route 66 specific.
But it's in this plan.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
hopefully we'll move forward on it.
Here, here.
Sooner than later.
Yes, agreed.
Right.
Thank you. My questions are centered on the Public Safety Center. So that is in my district. I see that the $16,000, or $16 million, excuse me, that we put in for the maintenance facility is still attached to the project. When we
Yes.
rezoned, there's a PUD that will not allow that to be there. So I have questions about where it will be going. And is $16 million still enough? And you don't have to answer it today, but those are my questions. If you have an answer, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so the 16 million, that building, you're right, was not zoned to be there, so that's going to be on the east water campus, city of Tulsa, 56th and Garnett.
56th and Garnett? So still in my district? Okay. I would like some more information about what it's
Okay,
gonna be.
we'll get you, we will, yep.
Sorry, I chaired behind you.
I know, and is 16 million enough is the other question. And we probably, in an upcoming town hall in District 7, should talk about these things, because it will impact nearby neighbors, I'm sure.
You let us know if you've got upcoming
This
meetings,
is
any of you that you'd
brand
like
new
us.
information I'm just receiving right this very minute, so I'm glad I asked. My other question was municipal courts ADA. How long before municipal court moves out and we tear down the building that we just put $1.275 million in to improve? Anyone? Okay, you can answer it later.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question that
It's a
I
great
myself
question,
asked.
Yeah. So, please don't misunderstand, we need to be ADA accessible to the court, and the court needs to be accessible to the people. I will just say here, I don't think it should be located at the Public Safety Center, and Counselor Bingle and I definitely voiced those concerns before it went into a package. And so if we're looking at State Farm to be the place of the municipal court, I will not support that. So I would like to hear an update on, one, when the building that they're currently in is not gonna be utilized, since we put $1.275 million of improvements in it, or are continuing to, and two, where they're gonna go. The third question I think I had was about EMD facilities, maintenance and upgrades. What is EMD facilities? I just don't, there's no address.
Equipment management.
And
department,
where's
yeah.
that located?
What item is that?
It's
Project
project,
11.
it's project 11, SP 10. Is that just overall maintenance facilities, or is that like out
Yes.
west, or?
It's generally maintenance, but
Okay.
EMD and as needed, it's kind of an on-call needed by
Okay,
maintenance.
so that's just a,
subconscious,
I just
but
didn't
yeah.
know if that was an actual like place. Okay, thank you.
Counselor Bingle and then Bellis.
Oh, okay. So you had some of the same concerns that I did.
Well, I
about
didn't mention the
public
jail
safety.
facility as well.
Yeah,
It should not
but I
be
think they
located
answered,
there.
I think they already answered that.
I think we answered that in our zoning.
Yeah, we did. But I think the court has, if Counselor Lakin, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our judges in our courts are looking at potential relocation facilities that they would relocate to. So I don't think they even know at this time where they're gonna land. But I think we all agree that they wouldn't land out there in East
I don't think
Tulsa.
we've all agreed. I
Well, I
think
would
some of
hope
us
we
here
would.
have.
I would hope we would, because, yeah, I wouldn't want to centralize the whole thing. Parks, quality of life is important, and as we look at the spaces that are being I know this is a challenge for you, period. The condition indexes that you have in the columns, on the playground improvement schedule, condition numbers, give me the scale, what the 1 through 4 represents.
Those are playgrounds specifically, just so you know that, it's not the park as a
Right.
whole. So, and it would be a combination of, in some cases, there's pieces that are broken or missing or things like that, a combination of what the actual condition is it worn? Are we able, one of the key factors is, are we able to get replacement pieces? So you have some older playgrounds that are in good condition, but they no longer manufacture the pieces for it, so anytime a piece fails, we essentially, I think you had one in your district like that, we just had to pull out the slide, we couldn't replace
Rosedew.
it. So when those get lower condition numbers, even if the pieces that are left are in good
Right.
condition, so. And
So-
then there was also, we rated them on essentially fun, which is
Yeah.
clearly subjective, but we have quite a few that are in good condition, but are boring as can be. So most of the ones where we say enhancement or partial, that's because we had a playground that we didn't need to take out. I think Boots Adams may be an example of that, it's in good condition, but it wasn't, we felt like there could be some enhancements added, so.
Okay, so you way over answered what I was asking. So really what I'm trying to get at is on the condition, is 1 a good and
I
4
forget
is
which
the,
direction.
is the
One is
worst?
our lowest, and then
Okay,
5 is
okay,
a
so it's in
brand new.
reverse.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was like, okay, how does this rating system even work?
Yeah.
And that's all subjective, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so, yep, you
5 is
answered my
best
question.
and 1 is worse.
Yes.
Yeah, so, perfect, answer my question.
All right, Bellis and then Bush and then Dutton.
I was curious first specifically to one project and then kind of as a more broad question for Dreamkeepers Park, and I know a big part of that is this matching grant through the Department of the Interior. How is that looking, on the federal front?
I've been communicating with the state office, and they say that there is no change to that grant, and we're still expecting to receive those funds. We're proceeding as if nothing has changed, and we'll continue to receive those funds until we hear
Okay.
otherwise from the State Department of Tourism and Recreation.
Yeah, I could imagine or hope that that will continue to be the case. I will say just one thing that I've heard from someone who does some consulting at one of those firms that's been auditing some of this, mostly impacting in a health space, but I think it could be a principle that we could try to apply for some of the logic of what happens at the federal level here, is that more of the things that are being kind of audited or frozen or blocked have to do with if they have certain types of measurements and reporting that have been actively happening, and that may not then affect a project like this as much, hopefully.
We're hoping.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Kind of hanging off of that, I was just curious if there were other projects on this list that either were similarly kind of keeping an eye on some of those federal funds, or also cost inflation from tariffs or things like that, and how we're navigating those
That's
projections.
challenging, and as you
Yeah.
can see as you look through this, when you guys review, there are a number of places, and you've heard about a lot of specific ones,
Yeah.
where we are over budget. I would say overwhelmingly, the over budget is because of increased costs. So
Yeah.
that's across, almost across the board, and I think the uncertainty with tariffs, the impact on steel, we've been trying to order every playground we
Yes.
can order, because the playground is mostly steel. And then also the impact on labor with the immigration changes. So I think that's very volatile. People are nervous. We've had a number of instances where someone has told us these costs will go up on such and such a date. So when we get that information, we try to prioritize moving forward if we can. The one other thing that will impact a number of our projects is a grant that has been frozen, and there is an indication that it's going to come back, is the Up with Trees grant. Which they were doing extensive planting. They were doing as part of that grant, which did use zip codes, targeted zip codes as part of it, so it's frozen, and they fear they aren't going to get it back, and that was going to be planting at Johnson Park, at Dreamkeepers Park, in addition to planting that they were doing across the city. So we have fingers crossed that maybe that comes back, but we're going to have to come back and fill in those gaps for every project where we have tree planting as part of it.
Okay, that's really helpful. I'm curious, you mentioned that what had gotten flagged was designated zip codes within the, was like that element of the grant, or we don't know what actually?
It was their grant, it was Up with Trees got this grant from, I
Okay.
forget which federal, but it was a federal grant that allowed them to
Okay.
plant thousands of trees here. And so they were they continue to be a strong partner for the city, but they were using that grant to plant at no cost to us. So we had built that into the cost of any of
I
our
see,
projects
okay.
that have trees.
Okay, well, hopefully that'll come back, or.
Yeah, we certainly hope so,
Someone
yeah.
want to contact our federal delegation. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Bush, Dutton, and Archie.
Quick little comment, the districts on here are not correct.
That may have not been updated since the redistricting a while back, so I'll make sure
Okay.
that those are correct. Yeah.
I found 6.
Yeah, you guys had a lot of flipping
Oh,
within
we-
some of
yeah,
those,
we
yeah.
did.
So,
Well,
stuff
you've got
Jackson's
his and mine, and
yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
we
make
have
sure
Zip.
that it
Did I-
reflects
did I get-
current.
you,
Was it to my
I now
advantage?
have Hunter's Park.
And you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I want
You
that.
do?
That's my only park, really.
Apparently, no, on this sheet.
We'll make sure that that's accurate.
I just, before it goes public,
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
please
yeah.
fix the districts.
No, that's good. So Dutton, Archie, and then Gilbert.
I didn't even know it was for parks also, I have a quick question. A constituent wanted me to know, wanted to ask me what partial enhancement means for, especially Norville Park over in
I don't know if we remember specifically for Norville. What we did on that, in some cases, it's pretty obvious if it's only add play equipment. We put signs out at every park. Some we got robust response, so we put our QR code signs, some of you are familiar with how we've done that, saying, we're gonna improve this park, tell us what you want. And so some, we got a lot of responses from people saying, we want more swings, we want shade. And so we were able to use that. In some cases, we know we can identify swings is what everybody wants if they don't have it from a play element. But then we've also, Patrick Park, and I've talked about this before, the example where Patrick Park, the neighborhood said, we want a fence. So sometimes it's not a play element, it's some other, it could be lighting, it could be seating, it can be other things like that. We can follow up and make sure to
Yeah,
tell you
that
what our response is there.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with Patrick Park as well, the electricity.
Yeah, still,
Stolen electricity, is that something that we're gonna be able to work with the city on, or is that gonna come from private?
we hopefully, we just got the contact today of somebody who may be able to help that, the cost on that, just for everybody else, the electric was vandalized at Patrick Park, which we have seen a kind of increase in our sports fields. The repair cost is over $60,000. It's not funding that we had available, but World Baseball Organization that is there thinks they have a private partner who can work with
Oh, good,
us.
okay.
So we're hoping that we can make that work. And then we're trying, I won't talk about all the techniques we're using, but we're trying additional techniques every time to safeguard it and hope that it makes it harder.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got some ideas. I'm not gonna speak them publicly.
I always was for just making the electric
Boxing
live, but nobody else would go for it,
Just gonna
so.
leave it
Council,
quiet.
yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Have it
Counselor
passed.
Archie and then Gilbert.
Yes,
Move on.
question about the parks. Where is, Bell's Park? I know there's work happening at Bell's Park. I just didn't see it reflected in the list.
Everything that's happening at Bales is privately funded.
Right, okay.
And so, for right now, and that can be something we can add as kind of a separate category on here if you like, because that's why parks is so different than like streets where everything's just it's a sales tax package. We have so many different funding sources, but the work at what is happening at Bales,
Right.
the bike club is building their
Right.
headquarters there. That's the big construction that's happening right now. And as you know, we'll be announcing another improvement here
Right.
soon, so.
Yeah, I
we're
just didn't
excited
know,
about it.
I didn't know if there was a sliver of it that the city had to cover or any sort of input.
We are using some of the money that we have that will go toward the thing that we're announcing here.
Very good.
And then a lot of the other work is also, we partner there with NOAA, they on the baseball fields, and they are doing some improvements on their dime on the baseball fields, NOAA, which is Northeastern Oklahoma Homeschooling Association partners.
Okay.
Okay?
And then, I'll say two things. We answered the one about Bales. So Schlegel Park, which is in South Haven,
Yeah.
it is in good condition. There's a daycare, an in-home daycare that's there. They're saying that the real little kids, like the 2 and 3 year old, there's not great equipment for them to play on. If you're like 7 or 8, or like my kid's age, play on those. But so yeah, we'll just maybe
Okay,
talk about
is that one that's an enhancement?
No, it's in good.
Good condition.
It's in good condition. It's
Replaced
green.
recently.
Okay, okay. We can talk to you
Yeah.
about if there's anything we can add there. It's not a real big park either, as I
Right, real
recall,
small.
so there's not a lot of room for it. Okay?
And Counselor Gilbert,
Yeah.
then we'll call the street team up.
A couple questions. So on the parks, to what Counselor Bangle was talking about, the number system that we have here, are we rating our parks if they're fun or not?
This is the specific play equipment.
Only play-
And
play-
this was
okay.
kind of a subjective assessment of these playgrounds, basically how many slides, climbers, swings, all of
Okay.
that do they have?
I just wanted
I
to,
think
We
something
had
else
an
should be on
era-
the fun scale.
Where a lot of our playgrounds
Well,
were
that's what
all
it looks
basically
like.
this tall.
I'm just like, are they fun or
Brown and
not?
green, this tall, and there's no swings, there's nothing that moves.
Yeah.
So there aren't slides and swings and high things.
all parks are supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
So, and back on to what Counselor Bellis was talking about, inflation and making sure that these projects are funded properly. What is the plan if they're not? I mean, if inflation goes up, especially with the tariffs, if they go into play, what is the plan to make sure that these projects are funded properly until they're finished?
I think the plan, you all will be part of helping solve that. I mean, we are.
But what, yes, we will be, but how will we be kept updated on these projects? I mean, do you have a timeline on how often you're gonna be coming back to give us updates on these projects, especially the ones that are not funded enough?
I don't believe that's on the schedule, but I think we'd be happy to do that and to maybe break it into this group and come back quarterly or whatever works for you guys to go through these projects, and we can let you know at that time every place where we see. I will note, like Counselor Bush, for example, knows we've talked, there are some things we'd like to do at Johnson Park that are going to be above our base bid estimate. And so we've talked to her some about what other opportunities she sees for funding. So we continue, I think we've been pretty aggressive on looking for grants and private funding to supplement our public funding. So we will certainly continue to do that, but we will absolutely look to you guys as allies and guides to help us when we run into some of these issues, which I expect we will.
Right, so once we get through this process, I mean, especially through the budget, I think it's very important that we get at least quarterly updates from you all on these projects. I mean, I think that's great that you're having conversations with Counselor Bush, but I think it's imperative for all of us to be in those conversations as well, so we know what's happening with the moving, I mean, that's our job, is to make sure that we pay close attention to the funding and funding sources. So
Absolutely.
if we could have you guys come back on a quarterly basis to give us updates, that would be
Yeah,
phenomenal.
we'd love it. Yep. You're our best allies in terms of helping us make those choices and then look for other opportunities
I hope
to
so.
support funding. So, yeah, we would love that. Okay.
Two quick comment and a question. So +1 on the hotel. I've loved the concept, I've loved the location, I know you have logistics to work out, but the spirit of it, I hope, can move forward. Because we are trying to attract people to that part of Route 66, and that part of the river and everything else. And then, Mary, on the $1.27 million, that's not all just taking place at the municipal court building, is it? It's
no.
OTC as well?
Yes, OTC as well.
Like, how much is at the courts and how much is here?
I can get that.
Ish.
Let's see. Sorry, what number are you thinking? It's
Number
like
5 on page 3.
Yes, so 90% of the work is exterior at the court, so it's like ramps and there's some spalling on the
Yeah.
walkway up
So
there.
90% of the 1.275 million is at the courts?
No, 90% is exterior. I can get the breakdown of OTC versus courts. I don't have that
Okay.
with me, so
Okay.
I'll get that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to know how much we're
yes.
putting in there compared to here. If
Yeah.
This is a survivor, that is not. I don't even know if we budgeted $1 million to implode that thing. That will be a great day.
We already volunteered to do that.
You can come push
yeah.
the fake button.
I'll
We
do
already
it.
volunteered
Demo
for
day.
that.
Push
You guys
the
save
real
money by just giving them sledgehammers.
You
to
ready
start.
for
Okay,
your
so,
next?
yes, but counselors, please look over this information and then reach out to Anna or to Mary or to anybody on her team for answers to the questions that you'll have.
And again, we would love if you give us some feedback on how we can organize this in a way that gives you more information, or, other ways you'd like updates, let us know before that next visit.
Council district.
Yeah, we're gonna add that.
On the parks list too, all
Yeah.
districts.
Yeah, to all of it.
Correct, Council District.
That actually,
Thanks,
that's
guys.
online. That's online. and
Oh,
it-
I know, but
It gives the,
like they have Johnson Park in District 7,
Yeah.
that's District 9.
gotcha.
I'd love to start in District 7.
It's a good park. Thank you all very much.
Or in two. Bring it to two.
Paperwork.
All right, so,
We're just gonna stay on.
Yeah.
We're not even.
Wow.
Oh, these are one for each of us, oh my god.
Don't.
Okay.
Everybody gets one? Is
We
this,
get the
so,
mega
yeah,
picture.
like,
You know, it's really clever where you give people, it's like when a law firm sends over a ton of stuff to bury information.
Okay.
yeah, if we can,
We'll
we'll go
talk real
through
fast.
each
yeah,
district.
if we can be done by 5 till on the presentation, then we'll go to
Oh,
questions.
it will be even before you're.
Is this
Okay.
the same stuff that we got last?
This is a little bit different. I'll talk about this later. You want to go ahead and start?
Let's turn it this way.
I'm listening.
All right, counselors, Paul Zachary,
That's all right.
there's Henry Sondersurf handing out Doug Health.
I love it.
And what you're given is, this is our standard format for when we go to your public meetings and town halls. We have over 350-plus projects, so we're not going to go over them here, but the format is this. The three packets you were given was IoT 1, IoT 2, and IoT 3.
Can I
We-
just ask a quick question? We're using the old district boundaries.
It's
because
Okay,
that's
let
what
me,
the
let me
packet
say this
is.
real quick.
It's all district
The
boundaries.
way the projects were divided and all the tracking, all the way through munis, everything, the council districts stay as they were voted for all our maps. We don't change our maps, that would change all our math, that would change all the appropriations. Every council, as we get the new program, it is whatever the council district boundaries were at the time of the vote.
Okay.
That's how we've tried to maintain sanity in that deal, or we'd be constantly shifting the shares and the dollars that are by each council district. So, the purpose of this is, for those of you that are not used to the format, if you just look at the Improve Our Tulsa 1, and that's on Improve Our Tulsa, Council District 1, we do graphically, we locate all of the projects. They all are assigned a number. And then on the sheets immediately behind it, we have project ID with that number, the description of the street and the work, the budget, comments about it, and then its status. And that can be anywhere from design, construction, completed, and you'll see that on a lot of the IoT ones. I think we only have, 10 IoT 1 projects, and that's pretty much due to value engineering and trying to get utilities cleared. So that is the format for every one of these. So I think, to honor your all's time, take a look at the data on these, and we will get back with you as we do the mayor's meetings in the various council districts. These are the maps that we're going to be using, or something to this format. And there's just not really an efficient way to go through all these. We felt that Parks was more regional. These are very specific, and I appreciate that you're probably looking at, why did we give you 2, 3, 4, 5? Some like to see what else is going on, others, but we appreciate that your main focus is yours. So this is packets IoT for 1, 2, and 3. So we already talked about the district maps at time of vote. And the only other item our main focus and our challenge with these projects is IoT 3 answered a lot of it when we got another $94 million to make up for the inflation issues that we're experiencing. And Doug and his group are going through, we're value engineering. There's no project listed on here that we're not going to be able to do as far as routine, preventive, and rehab. Those things are all going to be able to fit within that $94 million additional funds that were provided. We do have some projects that are yet to really get into. We may have one that's, we think is going to be challenging, and it's under a widening category, and we can talk about that one specifically at another time. But I will say, we currently have about 58 projects that are sitting on the shelf waiting for utilities to be done. Last year, we cleared about $279 million worth of construction projects with utilities. So far this year, we've cleared just under 30 million in utility relocations to get the projects out. We're actively working with all the utilities, ONG, the communications groups, and PSO are challenges. But those statuses should be noted in here, in the status. And really with that, absent you all having a specific question, we can get back with you. Contact myself, Henry, or Doug, and we will get you all the details you want on your project. So I don't want to take any more time. I think we're good, unless you guys have just a burning issue that we need to discuss.
This is what I was looking for.
Yeah, it is really helpful.
This is really helpful.
And if you go to,
ImproveOurTulsa.com.
right, I always do fixourstreetslive.com or whatever
Well,
it is, and get there the back way. But yeah, it's all there, and you can toggle the little boxes and have it put layers on, so it is helpful, and I send a lot of people that direction too.
Yep.
Counselor Bush.
Just for those that are listening, because it's one of the biggest questions we get. I know you mentioned the utilities, especially when you're doing road work. Sometimes the delay.
Yes,
you know.
ma'am.
Can you kind of clarify where we are on that, especially with ONG, on some of these projects in general? I know there used to be a backlog, but they're trying to catch up with more engineers, right?
Yes.
I just know I have some constituents listening, if you could address that.
Okay. We flooded the market with our street program starting in 2008 with severe total reconstruction on a lot of projects. ONG, and I'm going to just mention them because they've done the most to improve their service back to us. Because we had 2 crews that worked in these areas to do utility relocations for us associated with our capital program. We have funding as of IoT more than 40 years. If you sum up all the funding we'd spent on our streets, that got dumped on us in one period of time frame. When I say dumped, we were blessed with it. I don't mean to make that as a negative. But what happened in the meantime was ONG nationally, locally, we had some very serious incidents with old ONG, old gas line infrastructure. Really safety issues. So what they have really gotten a lot stricter on us being able to work, to the point of us even getting cease and desist letters from ONG letting us know you got a bare steel line underneath that. We don't want you to use your vibratory equipment. You don't want to do that. So what ONG has done in particular is they created an engineering group here in Tulsa. They started designing the rehab. They've gone back to the Corporation Commission to get more rebuilds, and we got up to having 12 crews working in this region. So they are actively working, and but I will tell you, we've had everywhere from 5 to 8 year delays on some of our relocations that are required. We're experiencing it on Lewis right now, Peoria, for almost 4 miles of it. And the problem it gets, and you guys had a little arbitrage little thing earlier, we're trying to, if those projects aren't going to be ready, we're taking the money out and putting them to shovel-ready type projects and trying to move that way. But that has been a challenge, and in previous audits and mayor's task force, we actually built a utility relocation group that is now up to 7 members, and that's full-time staff working on these things, just to give you an idea of the order of magnitude. And we provide that service to every department in the city. It's not just Public Works and Streets, it's water, sewer, as well as the others. And we have I think, a very good subsurface utility engineering group and effort that Doug is working with the consultants, and we're really trying to work through this. But just so you know, right now, we have over 99 projects that we're running through utility relocations. 41% were in between 60 and 90% complete, and 58 are literally waiting at this point. And that total number right there represents $362 million worth of projects. So when you see utilities being relocated, we celebrate it, even though but we're working through a backlog list, and we go over this weekly. We've gone into file sharing programs with ONG, PSO, and all our utilities. It's all digital. We're not marking up, they are involved with our designers. But utilities has been our number one challenge in implementing these programs, and I appreciate you saying something about it. We do get a lot of complaints about utilities, but what the utility companies have had to do because of their lack of in-house staff, they've brought in a bunch of subcontractors and consultants. That's a blessing and a curse, as we had some of our discussion earlier. Some of these guys are not hometown folks. They don't live here. They don't necessarily respect always the right of way as they should, but we are having to work on that, and it's a challenge. But that's where we are, and we're excited about it, but it's the growth in this program had brought some pain along with it, but I think at the end run, we're going to be in good shape. But I think Doug has done a good job with that as we've been kind of negotiating these times, but it is.
Well, and I do appreciate you explaining that, because
Yes,
it
ma'am.
is hard to explain that sometimes to neighborhood groups or whatever.
Right.
So that, I appreciate you doing the detail. And I also appreciate your patience when I email you going, okay, what are we doing here?
Right.
And give me that time frame. You all are very responsive. Because all
There's-
people see is orange cones and torn up
Right.
streets. They don't
And-
understand, so.
And they give us, the city, the credit for that sometimes when it's not us. But
I agree.
there's a lot of fatigue. By the time we get there, there's a lot of, people are already tired of it, but they've been living with some significant interruptions and obstructions in their neighborhoods and stuff as we go forward. But we're going to get really good at this just as we finish up the project. So.
Just as a quick clarify, just to make sure I heard that correctly, so with these kinds of bottleneck issues with utilities needing to come in and do those projects, you were saying that can delay some of these street projects 5 to 8 years. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. 5 to
Exactly.
8 years?
Yes.
Okay. And
8
then-
years has been our longest one to
Okay,
date.
and then as a follow-up question, like just to make sure I'm using this as an example, / one of specific interest, you mentioned like 4 miles on Peoria.
Right.
So that's one where we're waiting on ONG to,
Right.
okay.
They would, and what we'll do is we
I
will
get asked about
focus
that a lot,
on getting things cleared out. We just cleared up 41st to 51st, but those next steps, especially in Midtown, it is bare steel pipe.
Yep.
41st and Lewis, if y'all don't remember in the previous, it was like the perfect storm. But we'll go back to our Complete Streets program. We can either put Band-Aids on it and tear it up 6 months, a year later, or we fix it all the infrastructure, water, sewer, anything that's planned. And even though that may take a little bit longer, we believe that's the best way to move forward in the most efficient way and to minimize disruption to the public.
And Peoria, the street boundaries are like,
It went all the way from Admiral to 51st Street,
that's what I
wasn't it?
thought. Okay, just so let's.
It's our shared Peoria issue.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah,
little
it
bit
touches
of-
all of us.
Yeah.
Nobody's not affected by these
That's
programs.
just, well, that road got especially run down from when Riverside was closed to build the gathering place. so
Absolutely.
It's extra bad.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yep.
Peoria is in pristine condition, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you for that.
when is IoT 4 coming? That's the
I
question.
can't wait for it to be done.
Because Pierre will be on that.
It's so bad.
Mr. Miller will air that question, sir. IoT 4. In fact, wow, I'm
Way
just
to pass
kidding.
that by.
Render under.
Yeah, well, that's your thing now.
That's another item. So with that, do get back with us and call us, and we'll be happy to come meet with you or meet with neighborhood groups and go over this information. And we're going to try to keep our data up to date as much as we can. So anyhow, we appreciate your all's patience in working with us as we go through some of these challenges.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Guys.
All right, item number 2 is presentation and update by the senior advisor on homelessness or her designee on the residential care center. And this is Counselor Hall Harper's item. Good afternoon.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
So thanks for being here. So, as you know, I know it's been probably almost a month now since we first heard about, the change up for the residential care center. And so I've gotten a lot of calls. Other counselors have gotten a lot of calls. And so just want to make sure that we are trying to stay as engaged and informed of what's actually taking place so that we can communicate that to our constituents, to the media who calls all the time and we don't have answers for. So, throwing Kevin under the bus. But, so yeah, I just wanted to, again, make sure that we're staying engaged. I know you got a list of questions, you can touch upon, so
Yeah.
please do so.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the time and being here. Just before we get going, just wanted to put some different terminology up here, descriptions, because while we're here to talk about the residential care center, which is a transitional living facility, also called a temporary living facility. But those are just the various terms that I may use today and want to make sure that we all know what's being talked about.
Can you send us that, whatever information?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Is it back up now? Okay, I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, I'll send that. So the residential care center, also known by the property owner as Golf Course Suites, originally was approved for 55 individual units. It is now at 59 individual units. Some of those units in, I believe, 4 to 5 have the ability to house families. So they're a little bit larger than some of the other single units. The operator who will be providing services, right now there's not an operator, but we are in the process of creating an RFP, and that will be issued in the next 5 to 10 days. That RFP is for the operation of a transitional living facility. Last time an RFP was issued for this property, it was issued for a low barrier shelter, for an operator for a low barrier shelter. And so it's zoned for transitional living, and that's what the intent of the use, what the owner intends to use it for, and so that's what the RFP will state.
So, if I can jump in, so just for those who was not here, so that, originally, the mayor, previous administration, they were looking to do a, low barrier shelter.
Right.
But after discussing it and engaging with the experts of what was actually needed, the actual need was more of a transitional or a residential care center, and not a, low barrier shelter. And so that has been a lot of the concern for constituents in my district, that they don't want a low barrier shelter. And so sometimes the media reports that that's what it's gonna be, and, and it's just causing a lot of unnecessary confusion. So I wanted to be clear that was the change, that's what happened. So yes, that's what the previous administration initially said they thought we needed. But actually, they started delving into what was actually needed. It was not a low barrier shelter, but rather transitional living.
So this is more amenable to them?
Some were fine, there were a lot of people that were not. So I'm not gonna
We were
say
at a
that that was not.
community meeting in
Yes.
May?
Yeah.
No, not
It
May.
was in the summer.
It was September, when was that meeting, Sarah, that we had at Mohawk? It was like September, October.
Was it?
Yeah, because that's the meeting at the Greenwood Cultural Center we did not attend, and the media reported on that. So, anyway, just to add, we do need a low barrier shelter, but we don't need to have it at this
But
facility.
this is not
Right,
that location.
Correct.
Okay.
Is it still referral based?
Yes.
Well, she's
Yeah.
gonna finish presenting, so yeah.
No. Appreciate the question, yeah. So the operator, and this is the same as before, it will not change, but the operator will be in charge of providing services. So they'll contract with the property owner, and they will be in charge of providing services. These include, but are not limited to, management of facility operations, oversight of participant intake, supervision of security teams, case management, this includes mental health, housing navigation, meal coordination, staff support, coordination of healthcare services, and workforce development. To the counselor's question, the facility remains a referral-based facility. This is what the intent of it was. It remains a referral-based facility. It will not house violent criminals or sex offenders. The only change in use of this facility is that a portion of the rooms will be designated for encampment decommissioning. And don't know what that percent looks like. That will be, we'll have to work with that once we'll have to figure that out once an operator is identified. But given that we have 1,400 on average, 1,400 individuals who are homeless in Tulsa on any given night, and roughly between 350 and 400 encampments, we need to be able to utilize the residential care center if an individual who is living in an encampment, that location is a fit, and they meet the standards for entry for that facility.
300 to 400 encampments or 300 to 400 in encampments?
Encampments. There's over 500 individuals who are unsheltered in Tulsa. And the 2025 point in time count has not come out yet, so those are based on 2024 numbers, but we don't anticipate that lowering right now.
So you said it was like 500 that are actually living on the streets?
Roughly,
And
yeah.
then 1,400 who are
Homeless.
experiencing homelessness.
Yes.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
If I may.
Sure.
The encampment decommissioning and then the low barrier shelter standard, and you were talking about this wasn't going to be low barrier. How does that differ from the encampment decommissioning for the housing units that are going to be at the RCC?
Sure. So as it pertains to residential care center, during an encampment decommissioning process, there is intensive outreach that occurs, and it is those outreach workers that are able to work with encampment residents and identify what their needs are. And so, for example, take an encampment of 5 individuals. Maybe 2 of those, the residential care center is a fit for those individuals. They meet the requirements and they're ready for a transitional living sort of environment. Maybe 2 of those really need a shelter environment to stabilize, and maybe 1 needs a crisis center or a drug treatment center. So we are meeting the needs of each individual member of an encampment during that decommissioning process. So as it relates to the residential care center, that individual needs to meet the requirements and that is the sort of environment that is ideal for that individual.
And the goal is that when they go into that, the RCC, in that 3-month or 4-month period, those 2 individuals are ready to manage an apartment or some sort of a housing situation.
Sure, yes. So this is a gateway to permanent housing. The idea is that it is 90 to 120 day stay, and during that time, it could be shorter, but that is the typical time frame. During that stay, they're receiving case management support, housing navigation support, maybe workforce development. Some folks may begin to go to work, but all of that is happening during that time in preparation for permanent housing, on a pathway to permanent housing.
And the 24/7 security?
There is 24/7 security. This is not a walk-up facility. It is not a shelter. It is a transitional living center. So there's not a walk-up. There's no walk-up. Again, it is referral-based, and it stays that way.
Emily, I'm sorry, I know you said at the beginning, how many rooms?
There's 59, and I believe 4 to 5 of those can
Could
be
be
used for
family.
families.
Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize,
No,
thank you.
no. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are engaging in a formal RFP process to select a new operator. And that will be issued next week. I know there's been some question about what the requirements might be. One of those requirements is that they are Way Home for Tulsa member, part of the continuum of care. And that they have experience working with this population.
That they are already part of it, or that they will join
No,
if they're
they are
outside of
part.
it? Okay, they already are, okay.
Yeah.
So that means they're connected to.
Already
Yeah,
working
they're
in the space.
To the people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
Council Gullis has a question. Thank you for raising your hand.
Oh, no, I figured there's a queue, there's not. Oh my gosh.
No, we was just having at it this time.
You were. Wait, I was the one following the speaker rules?
The one time.
What is happening?
No kidding.
Okay.
No kidding.
This is very weird. Sorry, I'm just adjusting to the shock. Okay, so I'm curious about like how many qualifying organizations are like positioned within that cohort to potentially do that or take on that financially, right? Like, because I know that this becomes into play with like in the mix of nonprofits and all the federal fund and then staffing and so much else. I'm just curious if you all are like, oh, we actually feel good that there's like a broad kind of pool of potential partners on this, or is this a pretty, because, you know, this got posted before, we got 2 submissions, only one was viable. Like, is there something that's different today about how we're sourcing a partner?
So
or-
the feedback that we've received is that that some partners and organizations that are already doing this sort of work are very much interested in operating a transitional living center versus a shelter. And so I think that hopefully the response is a little bit more than 2.
And are you, because I'm trying to think of what was put out there when we were looking for a vendor previously.
There was an RFP with 2 addendums to it.
Okay,
And you can see it on the
and it
RFP page.
twice.
Yeah.
It was issued to us, but the second time was for a transitional living
The
No.
second
No.
time had.
or residential care.
Had some qualities like respite care and those types of things within the language of the RFP.
Okay,
The major difference was it was a longer term. Remember, the first time it went out was just for a year.
Then
The
it was
second
3.
time it was for a 3-year
okay.
term. That was a big issue. That people weren't really looking for a year term requirement. They wanted a longer term.
Isn't the BOA designation on the facility also for 3 years?
Yes, I believe it was 3 years.
And the RFP
Yeah.
had 3 years with
Okay.
contract renewal each year.
And then
So-
sorry, go ahead.
The new RFP, is it similar, is it the same?
It is the same. The only difference is that it specifically says that the operator is a member of a Way Home for Tulsa, and it is for a transitional living center. But what I stated earlier about the responsibilities of and services that the operator will provide, that those remain the same as they did before.
Out of curiosity, or two follow-ups to that. So the Way Home for Tulsa, for someone to be a partner, is it if anyone wants to partner, they're a member? Just to clarify, or for the public, if anyone wants to partner, they're a member, or their criteria to be an organization that
Right,
is
that's
in
what,
good
that's
standing?
those were
Sure.
And then I have like
It
another
is,
follow-up.
there is a process for joining
Okay,
the continuum of care.
okay, so it's not just like.
No, it
okay.
is not, yeah.
I didn't think so. And then for the operator, as far as, because I'm just thinking about the sustainability factor for nonprofits, especially in an unstable environment right now. So it's like the 3-year contract that obviously offers a certain sustainability to be able to do this. What about, for the actual, I had, at least myself, some misunderstanding about for that operator, for the building itself and costs they have to cover for the actual building. Like, is this included within what we're offering for the RFP, like utilities or other, just some of those maintenance things of the building, or is that all on the operator? I just wasn't sure where that responsibility landed.
So, what first has to happen is, so we have some general requirements for an operator, but then the property owner and the operator need to enter into an agreement before we can officially enter into our agreement with the operator.
Okay.
And some of those utilities, payments and that piece need to be worked out between the property owner and the operator.
Okay.
And then we will work out between the operator and us in our agreement.
Okay, so timeline wise, it's like we select, like, RFP process happens, I say the city selects that community partner, then they have to spend contract time with the property
Property
owner
owner
before entering into a contract with the city?
So yes.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood the timeline. And then for the things that made the past, like, partner that was selected fall through, are there certain things that, like, now we're like, that have been adjusted, or it's like something different that we're looking for in a partner operator? Like, is that, I know you might be able to speak to, like, some of that so much, but.
You know, all that has changed has been that in the RFP, we are specifically stating, and it will be in the contract, that some of these rooms need to be designated for, actually, I'm not sure if it is in the RFP, but in the contract, we will specifically identify that a certain percent, and that will be worked
Yeah.
out between the operator and city, are reserved for encampment decommissioning.
And, okay, that's super helpful to know. And then as, I sort of my last follow-up to that, I heard one of the things that was expressed as a concern from operators is about, or people with some experience when you decommission like a full encampment where several people, they've potentially been living outside for a long time. I'm thinking about like, I don't know, the Cherry Vodka tribe down by the river, you know, where they have a culture, they've been living in that community for a long time, and that if there's not a clearly established culture that they're entering into, which can be hard in a transitional living setting, and you put in a whole set of people who've been living together in that way for quite some time, that could create significant kind of challenges in supporting them. Like, is there intentionality, or is that something I guess this contractor would have to sort out around, because when we decommission a whole encampment, are we trying to be like, we're all gonna put you in this one place together?
No,
Okay,
and-
because that sounded like a
Yeah,
challenge.
that goes back to, I think, Counselor Dutton's question around encampment decommissioning is the process to, a formal coordinated process to decommission an encampment
months.
takes a lot of time and includes intensive outreach. And that piece is where the operator is gonna be relying on outreach teams, and we're gonna be relying on outreach teams who have that relationship, who understand and make an assessment, a formal assessment of those individuals. And the likelihood of everyone in an encampment fitting the requirements and the residential care center being the right place for them to go is likely probably slim. So it will be on a case-by-case basis.
I do want to flag that we should make sure we're focused on some of those encampments by the river for levee construction. I know there's a lot of other urgent neighborhood public safety things, but I know the county's been working on that with Family Children's. But I just want to mention, as far as, once we know the timeline for levees, that's just like one group that we're probably gonna have to frontline focus on, and a lot of people are living in that levee
And
area.
I know there's a lot of questions around the encampment decommissioning policy that's being built, and I'm happy to come back. I know our focus today is residential care center, but I'm happy to come back and provide an update on the decommissioning policy.
I would like that.
What,
Thank you.
what will be, what is the percentage, if you know, and if you don't, when will you know, the actual percentage of rooms that will be dedicated to decommissioning?
That's not until an operator's in place.
Why are they selecting that number?
They're not selecting it, we're selecting it together. So
Okay.
right now, teams are out, our teams are out, as they respond to an encampment, we're collecting data that is going to drive, policy framework on decommissioning. And it also drives, how many folks are in an encampment. It goes back to that, how many folks are in an encampment. If we have an encampment of 20 and 5 of them are identified as a good fit for residential care center, we need 5 rooms. So that number is not a set number, but we do know that there needs to be a certain availability of rooms. It's gonna be on an encampment by encampment basis.
I have a question. Other than sorry about this.
Yeah,
So-
Counselor Decker.
So part of it is this residential care center is being filled, some folks from encampments, but the other, maybe 70% are day center and like the John 316. How are we sourcing those people?
Yeah, they could be referred from a shelter provider, they could be referred from a hospital
Okay.
provider. So those are other mechanisms for referral.
Okay.
Joseph Decker.
Thank you. That's a good question, Counselor Archie. So in the 3H task force, we learned during COVID, we had what we called I think COVID hotel is what we called it, but it was people who were sick or disabled could not go into our typical congregate shelters, and so we stood up this hotel that was working really well for our hospital system. So when we had the 3H task force, all the hospitals were like, that was so great, because if they don't have some place to send someone, it's like $5,000 a day or some really high number. Maybe it was $1,500, depending on their level of need. Whereas they were like, we will help share in the cost if we can refer to a place where they can still get their medication, or maybe they're still on oxygen, or they're recovering from surgery. So this transitional living facility with a referral to make sure that the operator has space for that person's needs is kind of what we talked about way back then. And so I hope we still are retaining that piece of it, because some of the most vulnerable, not only do they not have housing, but they're, maybe recovering from a major heart surgery, or they're permanently disabled, and they might be in a wheelchair permanently. They really cannot even get down on the floor in a congregate shelter setting. So that's why it's really important to volunteer in those pop-ups, so you can really see the face of the people we're trying to serve. I have a question about after the 90 to 120 days, what is the plan?
So the plan is that we have a housing, during that time, they're gonna be working on housing navigation, that they are moved on then to permanent supportive housing, or through a rapid rehousing pathway. Now, there are constraints because of units available. Does that mean that they are kicked out? No, but we are quickly working on how do we get those units online, available, because that's the other piece of permanent housing. So if we don't have that, it creates a bottleneck.
Right, so I'm gonna go back to, you said it was zoned, is that what you said? It was
It's
zoned?
temporary, yes.
It's through a BOA action, zoned as a transitional living facility, which is capped at 120 days. Is there any wiggle room that goes past 120, or is that hard and fast?
That I'd have to find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I just really do want to amplify that exemption or exception is for 3 years, which aligns with the 3-year funding, right? But we need to be thinking about that as well. So I know there was one-time ARPA dollars that I think we approved 3 years ago
Yes.
to stand this.
2.5 million.
Right? So that's the one-time expense. What are the ongoing expenses, and what are the sources of how that's going to be funded? Do you know?
Sure, so we have 2.5 million ARPA dollars, 4.2 million, right around that number, of opioid dollars, that it's not to exceed that amount, allocated for this project as well.
For the 3-year
For the
contract?
3-year contract.
And the 2.5, is that time bound to be expended by December of 2026?
6.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think there's a question on what city dollar, if there were any actual city dollars being allocated for the residential care center. So prior to any RFP, any agreement around the use of this property, the property owner did apply for Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars, and those were awarded, and so he does have those for his
Who,
construction.
the owner of the property did? Okay.
Yeah.
Already has them?
Yeah, it's
Or-
privately
Yes.
owned.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so real quick, I'm gonna jump in, and then Dutton, Archie, and then Bush. So, when do you think you'll have something to bring down to us, just to talk more about the decommissioning process? Because I'm thinking through the constraints, I just don't know all the constraints in the system. I know there's a plan for decommissioning, but if you hit a constraint, then all decommissioning may stop if you don't have any place to put
Yeah,
20% of those people or whatever. So I don't want to get way ahead of it, and it's
Sure.
not the topic of today, but,
Anytime, I'm happy to come.
okay, so you're ready to talk
I
about
can,
it.
yeah, I'm ready to come talk.
Okay, so maybe we put that on in a month or something like that, after we get through some of the budget-related topics. But, yeah, I have a lot of questions coming from people, and then I have a lot of personal questions too, so the more I know, the better able I am to address all those. Okay. Your turn.
I just have a quick question as well, and equitability for like female and male as opposed to, you said John 3:16, day center.
Sure.
John 3:16 is primarily male, and when we have the day center, we have the Salvation Army, which has a greater impact in the male population with a limited number of beds for the females. How are we looking at this in regards to, say, teenage girls getting aged out and finding themselves homeless, or senior women? What are we looking at as far as equitable?
So youth services serves up to 24, 25 years old. And they do housing placement and they have a shelter. What is, you saw happen during, or at least I experienced during the winter time with all of our shelter providers, and what I think until we can get more low barriers shelter space online and more housing units available to move folks through the system, is that operators are really working with each other to say, okay, facility A, you serve men, so how can facility B move some of our residents and folks staying here over to you so we can open up places for women, for families. And so the shelter providers are real in those sort of situations, and I think as we move forward, we're beginning to have these conversations of we have limited space now, and how do we use the residential care center truly as that short-term, this is the final step before you go on to permanent housing, but working with those service providers and shelter providers on how they manage their space, and can there be any shifting to serve folks?
Do we have a breakdown on the stats of gender and sheltered population?
I believe Housing Solutions probably has that
Okay, I'll get in
information.
touch with them. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Two things. For this is piggybacking on what Councilor Director Wright was saying, just with the quote-unquote COVID hotel, are we thinking maybe you got to be at 30% for decommissioning? When you look at that 70%, are you saying that we may see some more carve-outs or breakouts when you consider the type of unhoused residents we're trying to serve and bring through that system? Maybe considering gender, maybe considering mobility status, that there could be additional considerations there?
I think that the referral will come based on is this the right place for that person?
Okay.
And it may not be the right place for every person. So whether it is, I think it's just going to be based on need and fit.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about the Hilltop project at Tulsa Housing Authority, and they've used the term transitional housing as well. I'm wondering if their definition of transitional housing or some of those metrics, how they align with the city's definition, and if there's a way to work together, because I think they want to do 107 units as well. Just how do we coordinate to where, that can all work together?
I'm not sure what all of the units are designated for, but I do know a certain percent of those are permanent supportive housing, and that is not transitional housing. That is long-term housing, and a great next step. And many folks that we have that are homeless need permanent supportive housing. So it's needed.
Okay.
Ms. Bush?
Oh, just quick on, you mentioned the opioid funds. Is that from the direct deposits you get or from the abatement grants?
Direct.
Direct. Okay, thank you.
And that's already allocated for.
Right, because you just get those automatically every year. I didn't know if it was part of the grant
No.
that you were, okay. Sorry.
Thank you. No,
Technical.
No, that's okay. I'm glad that you know the nitty-gritty of those grants. For the RFP, it has to be in Away Home for Tulsa. Is the provider going to be expected to provide also all the wraparound, either through subcontracts or the direct provision, because when we went through this before, where it's located does not have a lot of just naturally built environment for walkability, transportation, even groceries, and so one of the big talking points was like, how are people gonna be transported to and from even a grocery run, what's laundry look like, mental health supports, and of course, there was a lot of conversation about like, will these folks be allowed to just walk around the neighborhood, and the answer is yes, it's not a lockup, they are neighbors, and so they will come and go the same way we get to come and go from where we live. But there's not a lot of facilities in terms of.
Resources.
Yeah, resources, and so will the RFP mandate that the awardee provide all that or subcontract that, and what does that look like? Do you know?
It does say that they are responsible for those services. So a lot of individuals that come in already have some sort of mental health provider that they're working with, and there is space set up in the RCC for meeting space. So where providers can come in, work with their clients that are there, and so that they don't have to leave the facility for that. There's also laundry facility on site. I actually just toured a couple weeks ago. And some folks will have employment and they will leave. I know that the property owner has worked with Tulsa Transit, or MetroLink Tulsa has microtransit, and they serve that area. And so that's an avenue for transportation, as well as the operator will have some sort of transportation. And meal service, while each individual unit has a micro kitchenette, they'll be able to have their own food. The operator will have some meal service providers coming in. And I believe the property owner is working with a local mobile grocery owner, I believe, who, and that could
The only one?
That could be a location for a stop.
Yeah.
I guess right now it wouldn't be the best time to tour it because it's not been, we've not found a provider, it's not set up, but I'd be very interested in walking through and seeing it all.
I'm sure the property owner would love to give you a tour. It is under construction, so I was in hard hat and there's lots of loud noises going on, but yeah.
Okay.
It's an old nursing home.
Yeah.
What's your time frame? So RFP's going out in the next couple of weeks. How long do they have to respond, apply, do all that?
We anticipate selecting an operator at latest by end of May.
Okay, and then contracting.
And then contracting
can take
and,
some time.
yeah, and it should be operational midsummer to late
Okay.
summer. So,
When does the RFP close?
it closes in if we get it issued next week, it's 3 weeks after, so end of April,
3 weeks? Okay.
yeah, end of April, 1st of May.
And is there a review committee that's reviewing all those RFPs?
There will be, yes.
Is Counselor Hall Harper going to be on it?
I have no idea. I haven't been asked.
Haven't even gotten there, it's still
Okay.
under review, so have not even gotten to the next
I
step,
would
but
strongly suggest that
Sure.
the counselor whose district it is in gets to have, be on the inside of the conversations at some point of why an
Thank you.
operator would be selected, because she will be the one that gets the questions and the complaints. So, super important. I think so.
Anything else, Counselor Hall Harper?
Just want
Okay.
everyone to have an opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you,
Thanks for coming down.
you. Appreciate
and
it.
We'll schedule something with you in the
Yeah.
future.
definitely.
All right, with no
Thanks.
further business, we are adjourned. Thank you.
What?